and what we always focus on is just because you're not the best cold caller in the world does not mean you can't do cold calls. Like, because as at least my opinion, that the reason for cold calling and for voicemails is not because it's a magic bullet that they're going to, join a call with you. It's that they then know who Morgan is. So when you email them, they're going to respond to you because they saw your voicemail. They know you're a human, not some automated system. And now they're responding.
I'm OG, y'all new to the game.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Morgan J. here, your host of the SDR Chronicles. We're going to give you motivational tactics, tips, and techniques for your SDR journey, your sales journey, also your entrepreneurial journey, as I believe that sales development is the mantra and focal point of your career and also of your life, because we use sales development in some form or fashion every single day. And today I have Dan, head of emerging business and business development at Vidyard, and we're super excited to have him on the show today because we're going to talk about how to be focusing on the bumpers. And what that really means is thinking about what are the activities you're actually doing that leads to pipeline, not doing activities to do activities. And so I know a lot of people just say, like, I made 1,000 calls today. It's like, okay, so what happened with those 1,000 calls, right? So let's talk about this, Dan. What are some things that you're excited about this topic, and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll start with just kind of where I came from and why I'm here today. So
Absolutely.
I came from Salesforce before here, and then I joined Vidyard when we were a very small, scrappy startup, less than 10 people working out of a house that our founders owned. You had to turn the heat on when you came in the morning, and built up the sales team we have today, which is about 60 or 70 people. So what I mean by that is, through all this leadership and taking on such a large team, it's like you can't just constantly harp on people about their activities or like how much pipeline did you create this week, because those two things are, not necessarily related. You can do 100 calls today and not create any pipeline.
Right.
So what's the point? So what we focus on, and every business is going to be different on these, is you have to think about what are the precursors to pipeline. So for us, it's how many people did you find, net new people today, and how many total people are you reaching out to in any given week? Because if you're reaching out to 200 people a week and keeping on a regular cadence, whether you're using SalesLoft, manually keeping track of it, whatever it is, you're pretty much guaranteed to then create, 5 to 10 opportunities a month, because those ratios, you're reaching out to the right people, and it reduces the factors that you really need to focus on. So that's why we don't harp on activity all the time.
Absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. And we talked to this before the show. We talked to this call before we did this SDR Chronicles. Tell the audience, you mentioned a little bit already, but kind of elaborate so they understand here. Focusing on the bumpers. What does that mean? Is this a new hashtag? Is this a new shirt? Like, Dan, tell us more about this.
I've been using this in a lot of different ways. So I think that makes a lot of sense from not just BDR, SDR world, but anyone you're managing. So if you have any other listeners out there that aren't necessarily in SDR, BDR world, there's bumpers to every role. So, managing the bumpers is what do you really need to be doing every day to be successful in your role? So for our BDRs, our outbound team, we know that you need to reach out to 15 net new people every single day, and you need to have a total every week of about 200. So at any given time, you're actively reaching out to about 200 people, and that's going to get you 6 to 10 opportunities a month. And that's qualified opportunities that the account executives are working. So that's, in BDR world, what keeping to the bumpers means. But, if you're a developer, I also manage the digital team at Vidyard, there's other bumpers. There's, number of inquiries you're getting on the site. Well, that's okay. That's like activity. Sometimes you can't control the number of inquiries. So what can you control? Well, you can control, the site ranking in a search result by doing the right things from an SEO perspective. You can control the bounce rate by doing constant tests to make sure that people aren't leaving your site. Every role has a bumper that you can focus on as a manager or as a personal, individual contributor. How can you measure yourself with what's in your control? You
Right.
can't control whether somebody responds and loves your product, but you can control who you're reaching out to and how many people you're reaching out to.
That's a great point. And, you mentioned, how many people do you recommend that they put in a day? How many accounts are you saying, hey, you should look at for a week, or you're not worried about that? Like, what component of that metric are you looking at?
Yeah, so from an account base, every company is going to be different. So for ourselves, we can both target sales personas as well as marketing personas. We have several different products. We even have a support persona that a few select BDRs focus on. So that expands, if you're reaching out to a company like SalesLoft, since I mentioned them earlier, they've probably got 10 different sales leaders you could reach out to, 10 different marketing leaders you could reach out to, and 5 different support leaders you could reach out to. Well, that means that right there's 2 days worth of work. I'm not saying you're going to just spend 2 days straight on SalesLoft, because hammering all 25 people at that company, you're just going to piss them off.
Right,
but,
exactly.
Yeah. What we kind of aim at is like 3 people per company per day. So if you reach out to SalesLoft today, reach out to 3 salespeople, 3 marketing people, and then move on to some other accounts to fill in the rest of your day. So most of our reps aim at 2 to 3 new accounts a day, or going after accounts they went after a few weeks ago and recycling those.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned you don't always want to blast everyone out. You want to make sure that those, when you're focusing on those bumpers, making sure those actions are proficient. What are you telling your reps on how to do that contact strategy? Is it, hey, we're going to reach up to the top person in the organization first within that role? You're going after someone at the bottom up strategy. Like, how does that all work for you?
Yeah, I think every rep has a bit of a different tactic. For myself, I aim high and come down.
Yeah.
There are some reps, though, if you're fresh out of school and maybe you don't have that confidence to be reaching out to the CMO, maybe you shouldn't be, right? You should reach out to the lower level as you're getting started. But we find the biggest success for us is, I wouldn't say CMO level on the marketing side. That it's probably not in the weeds of marketing automation and needing video. So for us, we aim around that VP level. We start on the marketing side of the business, because then, people get all excited about our Go Video product, which is a sales product. But interestingly enough, the marketers actually get excited about it because they want the salespeople sending out their videos.
Right.
So we start with kind of high-level marketing and work our way down. As we do that, they end up bringing in sales because they want sales using video.
Right.
And then if we don't get a hold of anybody, we move over to the sales. Once again, kind of start top down. Depending on your product, that's usually the best way. When I was at Salesforce, you would start right at the top. You'd start at C-level, no matter what size company you're going after, because Salesforce runs your entire business. So you need the buy-in from the executives before you even waste your time.
Exactly. So it's more so understanding your business more so than anything else. So that answer is obviously going to be different for everybody that's listening.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I've talked to a lot of different companies over the years and get their opinion on how they deal with things. And sometimes I definitely disagree with them, and maybe they haven't been in the situation before, so they don't know necessarily where they should be reaching out, and they're just going to the top because that's what Salesforce says to do, or the different coaches in SDR world. But I would say it depends on your company. If your product is not business critical, why does the CMO care?
Absolutely. So that actually brings up another point. So you're saying, hey, CMOs aren't even involved, right? So do you guys have that as a last resort option because you guys don't see that many people, CMOs, being involved? Because that's something to be cautious about, right? Because most people think, oh, CMO, that's the most important marketer in the organization. So I got to go there first.
Yeah. So what we do there is when we're reaching out to a company, we won't be reaching out to the CMO asking for the meeting. Mm-hmm. We'll be reaching out to the CEO saying, hey, look at all this, like basically the why video story. Here's why you should be using video. I see your team's using a lot in demand gen. I'm going to reach out to, ABC, VP of marketing. But I just wanted you to be aware of all the cool stuff that's out there with video marketing right now. Because, we're not expecting them to engage with us, but we want them to be aware of us so that when we get down to the final deal, they already are bought in. They've seen the cool factor. They've seen the Go video, or they've seen the personalized video. They understand the value so that they're not then questioning why their VP wants to sign up for Vidyard.
Absolutely. Okay, that makes sense there. And then I would scale back, as you mentioned, hey, we want to make sure that we focus on activities that are leading towards pipeline. How are you, and maybe in one-on-ones or actually you're talking to managers and you're talking to your reps, segmenting out activities that they need to do based on their personality? So for example, there's probably someone in your organization who's really good at cold calling, so you probably do more of that. But obviously you guys are Vidyard, so you guys there's people who are really good at videos, so it's do more videos. How do you segment that out to make sure that they're focused on the stuff they're good at?
Yeah, for sure. I think it does depend on the person, and what we always focus on is just because you're not the best cold caller in the world does not mean you can't do cold calls. Because as at least my opinion, that the reason for cold calling and for voicemails is not because it's a magic bullet that they're going to, join a call with you. It's that they then know who Morgan is. So when you email them, they're going to respond to you because they saw your voicemail. They know you're a human, not some automated system. and now they're responding. So even though you may not be the strongest in one spot versus the other, we still coach like you've got to kind of follow this playbook. But hey, Tom, you're like amazing on the phone. And it seems like the target market you selected, we let BDRs kind of pick their own adventure. So for him, he's really targeted on more like security and IT technical companies. They respond better to phone versus email anyway. So like, let's just hit the phones as much as you can. Let's automate a bit more of your cadence, focus on, an initial video and then a lot more calls than the other reps. So it really depends on not only the person, because I feel like sometimes the person's irrelevant. Like if just because you're good at phone calls doesn't mean that your market cares. Doesn't mean that marketers are going to pick up the phone, right?
Yeah.
Like our marketing team doesn't have phones. So anybody listening to this trying to get to a Vidyard marketer, don't bother calling. You're just going to reach my inbound team, and they're going to be like, "Look, man, you got to find his cell phone number because they don't have phones."
Right. Yeah. 100%.
So yeah, from an individual rep perspective, it's that balance of yes, you're good at it, but you still need to have that well-rounded, LinkedIn, email, call strategy to really be successful.
And then the granular part of this is that's all dependent on that rep, like you said, right? It's dependent upon how they feel, or should a leader like a beginning rep, should they segment them out to be like, this is what you have to do until we figure out exactly what you're good at?
Yeah, we have a pretty prescribed model when you first start. The cadence is set. It's a team cadence. Everyone uses the same thing. You're doing the same thing until you really figure it out. We do, when we're hiring, we'll identify, okay, this person's going to be like really killer at video because they're very artistic. They can do some unique things. So we'll start them off really getting into their strengths so they feel more comfortable as they get started in the company. And even within our different sales models, we have the emerging business, which is really small businesses. We have our commercial and enterprise, and then we have the different use cases. So if you're coming in and you've come from a background of a lot of IT services, we'll probably align you to that support use case. So focusing on the post-sale use case, because now you're dealing with IT managers, community managers, customer success leaders, more technical folks. So, based on your experience, we're going to line you up there. So that's really the only time before someone starts you can identify their strengths.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense there. And then let's talk about video follow-up, right? So when do you feel like is a good time? I mean, this is going across the board as an SDR, maybe you're an AE, right? When is a good time to understand your bumpers and do the right activities to do video? Because you can make as many videos as you want, but obviously you want to make sure that they're targeted. So like, when is the right time to do video?
Yeah, now that is always the question, and it really depends on whether you're an SDR, outbound BDR,
right,
an account executive. What we really focus on is where are you struggling to get responses in your strategy. So for our inbound team, when somebody comes inbound, we don't immediately make a personal video for them and email them, because honestly, it's a waste of time. So we have a canned video for each rep that if they immediately call because the person requested a demo or something on our website. If they can't get a hold of them, we send them the more generic video that just says, hey, like, what time would you like to meet? If we don't get a hold of them then, that second outreach, that's when we'll make a personal video. So that's how we do it on the inbound side. And Salesforce is doing a similar methodology, like, because you're pretty much guaranteed on an inbound lead, you're going to get 20% response rate on the first email. So why make it too personal?
Right.
Let's just get the email out there. Whereas the opposite is true for our outbound team. Our outbound team, the very first thing you do is send a video before you even call, because we want to have a talking point when we actually call you. So I'm going to send you a video with some suggestions about your business. So when I call you, hopefully you've watched the video, and we'll be able to know that because of Go Video.
Yeah. And
I'll have a relevant conversation with you because I've seen if you watched it or not. And if not, I can direct you to go watch it after this and decide whether you want to meet with us or not. So it just depends on where in your kind of timeline of outreach you're having struggles getting a hold of people, and then layer in some personal video there so that you get increased response rate.
Absolutely. So that you brought up a point there I want to touch on. So you're saying create the video and then using that call or voicemail to revert back to it. Do you guys proactively use voicemail to be like, hey, I'm about to send you a video, or it doesn't really matter, either or is effective?
Yeah, either or is effective. Typically we'll usually call afterwards. Just the way our sales loft is set up. But either works. And then even our second email from an outbound perspective is actually just replying to the video.
Got it.
Saying, I'd love to get your thoughts on the video below. So then it's, driving them to watch the video, and then the customer can make the decision as to whether they actually want to engage with us or not.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not bothering them essentially. We want them to self-guide and become a customer of Vidyard because they believe in what we do.
Absolutely. You never want to force someone on opportunity or demo, because then they won't show up, or you're just gonna be following up just to follow up.
Exactly. You touched on a great point there. The whole, do they show up? I find that the biggest gap in SDR world, right? You book a meeting, and then like 1 out of 3, if you're lucky, and then you're like, I just booked 3 meetings and only 2 showed up.
Yeah.
So what we've been doing a lot of, and what Salesforce was excited about when I talked to them as well, is, the day before that meeting, especially if it was scheduled a few days out, send a video. And if you're the SDR, try to get your AE beside you, or if they're a remote employee, have them make the video. Because what it does is, I'm watching you on video right now. I feel like I'm personally connected to Morgan. I don't want to let Morgan down. I'm going to join this meeting.
Right.
So you send that video to somebody, be like, hey, Fred, I'm really, really excited to talk to you this afternoon. I've got a couple ideas for your business, but we'll chat more then. They've now seen you say that, I'm looking forward to this meeting. It's a much more personal connection and letdown versus, an email with some text in it saying, looking forward to the meeting, or, one of those automated Gmail, like your meeting is coming up in half hour type things. It just makes that personal connection. It's a lot like if you've met somebody at a conference, they'll usually show up for a meeting because you chatted with them, you had a beer with them, whatever it was.
Right.
It's just a much different experience.
Absolutely. And it's actually, you bring up a great point, because, I make videos throughout LinkedIn. Obviously, we have this YouTube channel here, the SDR Chronicles, and there's a lot more people who will come up and be like, hug me because they've seen the videos. I'm like, whoa, like, I don't know you that well. I guess you know me really well, but I don't know what's going on here. But you're right. It creates that connection, because you're like, oh yeah, I know this person. And it's like, we have never talked before, but that's really what it does. And that's why on most of my actual sales calls, I always try to do video, because that connection, I can see facial expressions. Okay, are you actually listening to what I'm saying? Do you actually care about what's going on? So I'm absolutely about that for sure.
Yeah, I love Zoom. I remember a year ago we have a screenshot of this deal, and we had the CMO, the VP of marketing, the demand gen, and the web manager in the room, and we could see them because it was a camera room, and they were all just like leaning back on their phones like this. Like, this is not going to be a deal. There's no way.
Yeah, it's like not happening.
Yeah, and it's not a deal. It wasn't. Not
At least you know coming out, I was like, hey, that's probably not gonna go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So a lot of good points there. Definitely about the video. I think people never listening on that, but this is a different type of question. So let's say that someone's struggling, right? And they start overwhelmingly doing too many metrics. How do you step in and be like, hey, like focus on the stuff that you've been doing before that works, and not having them do so many metrics that they burn through accounts and they burn through their contacts?
Yeah, exactly. That is an issue that we've had time and time again, where a rep seems to be struggling, so they double down on their activity. They double down on all. Yeah, and then you're not personalizing as much.
Nope.
So whenever we do a performance plan, and we do them pretty early, a couple weeks in, if you're not really killing it in a month, it's like, okay, let's set up a plan between me and you. Just as your manager, not anything to do with HR, but it's like, we know the bumpers. So I want you to have 15 people a day with 15 videos sent that are personal, and around 200 in total that you're reaching out to at any given time. So if you're already over that, you can just focus on your 15, and it'll naturally reset itself. Because basically the 200 number is because of the frequency of our outreach. It just naturally builds to 200.
Yeah.
So if that's going up, that means you're basically like dragging that ball and chain along.
Yep.
Because 15 people a day should always have 200 in total. So if you have 250 in total, that means you're sending messages again and again and again to the same people.
You're just running,
Yeah, it's a waste of time. So you need to move on to net new people. So we typically use 3 metrics in a case like this. We use the net new people every day, the total in your called queue, and meetings booked. So that one is a little bit less in your control, but all it is meeting booked, not opportunity or anything. It's just somebody who is willing to get on the phone with you and have a preset conversation like this.
Right. Absolutely. That's definitely critical.
Yeah. And then we tell them, you got to stop focusing on number of activities, all this other stuff. Just get your 15 videos made every day, your 15 new people, and run through your sales loft cadence. If you've built your own sales loft cadence, get back to the one that's proven. Like, that's the biggest thing I don't like about some of these tools is, You can't actually force someone to use the team cadence. They can go off and do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And that's usually when we find reps start to have some lower success, because we know what gets response rates, and you start sending out different emails. We don't know what those are going to get, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think a lot more people need to focus on that is when something works, like go back to that. Don't 100% A/B test everything, because then you're not learning anything. And also like, you don't really know what your results are going to be.
Yeah, A/B test one thing at a time. If I've learned anything from managing the digital team, it's like A/B split test one thing at a time and wait for statistical significance. So like as an SDR, that means just because you got 5 responses this week to this new template you did, doesn't mean it's any good. It means you hit 5 good people with the right message.
Exactly.
So just keep on going.
Exactly. That's it. You got to keep on going. I like it. So Dan, thank you so much for providing some great insights here on the SDR Chronicles. Last question I ask every single person that comes on the show. What's the number one piece of advice that you give SDRs as they enter into their new role?
Yeah, I would say, follow the advice of your leadership. You may not agree, like maybe you've been in a sales role before or something, but you don't know that company specifically. And if all of the people around you are hitting their numbers and they're doing a certain thing, don't try to recreate the wheel to stand out from the pack. Get in the role. We always say, 6 months in, you're probably then really comfortable with trying some new stuff. So we have some tiers built in. So number one piece of advice is use what works. Stick to the stuff that we know gets responses until you really are an expert in the field.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, once again, thank you so much for hopping on the SDR Chronicles. Is there, as we wrap up here, is there anything that you want to give shout outs to, anything that you want to talk about, anything that you want to express while you have your moment here?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is that Go Video is free. So any SDR listening can go to vidyard.com/GoVideo and start sending videos and getting increased response rates to your prospecting.
Love it. Well, Dan, thank you so much once again. As I always say, guys, keep dialing, and I'll see you guys soon.